Welcome to Metro Matters. Today, my guest is the Chief of LMPD, Chief Paul Humphrey. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. So, how is it being the chief? I know, how long has it been now?
Officially about a month, but really since the beginning of June. So I'm getting settled in. It took some getting used to, but now we've got our team in place and we're up and running. So I feel pretty good about the momentum that we have now, right now.
So, LMPD is not new to you. You started your career
2006. So I've been around my entire career, 18 years I've spent with LMPD, and kind of seen a little bit of everything at some point around LMPD, and so excited to have this opportunity to become the chief.
So your sister, Yvette Gentry,
Yeah.
her career was with LMPD as well. So how did that influence your path of wanting to be an officer?
Yeah, she actually started out with old LPD and then obviously retired from LMPD and came back as our interim chief for a little bit. And it's kind of funny because we never really talked about policing too much. And yeah, when she was on, she started, I think about 10 or 12 years before me, she came on the department. And so we never really talked about policing that much. And then the day I signed up for the academy, we started talking about it a lot, right? I think she didn't want to influence me one way or the other, wanted me to have my own path in life. And so I ended up following her footsteps. And it's funny because every step along the way, I was Vet's little brother, and then I'd start to make my own name, and then something else would happen. I was Vet's little brother again. So, and it was kind of the same way when I took over as chief. She has been an outstanding big sister to me.
Absolutely. I really like Yvette. So as the chief, what is your vision, goals that you've set? Because I know you've hit the ground running and you've already been making changes and that kind of thing. So talk a little bit about your vision and your goals.
Well, I mean, simply, this profession comes down to two things. It comes down to keeping people safe and protecting constitutional rights. And so we have to have a plan and a way to do that. And safety has to be something that we focus on as a community. We have to focus on it, and we have to understand that there needs to be a plan to go along with that. And so we've developed a crime strategy. We've revealed part of it, but we're gonna have a press conference here in the next couple of weeks and give that entire strategy out about what our short-term, our mid-term, and our long-term solutions are to combating violent crime. And what I want us to be is I want us to be a department that's constantly looking for how can we improve. Okay. The one thing I'm not satisfied with ever is the status quo. We shouldn't change just to change, but there's always an opportunity to look at what you're doing and say, how can we do it better? So not just looking at the things that we've done poorly, there always should be a desire to fix the things that you've done poorly. But look at the things that you do well and hold each other accountable to being the best version of you that you can. We don't want our successes to be by chance. So when we do something well, we want to make sure that it's because we had good training, good supervision, good feedback, and it's repeatable by other people. And so it's really important to build that culture of feedback where it's about constant improvement.
And so the logo has changed. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our official logo has not changed,
Okay.
but what we're doing with some of our marketing materials and some of those forward-facing materials that you're seeing on social media and things like that, with the One Metro, One Mission logo, where the M is two ones, right? And so we want everyone to understand, both internally and externally, that this is something that we're doing together. When it comes to community safety, this isn't something that we provide to the public alone. That this is a collaboration, and this is about sharing everybody's ideas. That every officer, from the newest officer in the recruit school all the way up to me, has ideas that can be valuable, and it's the same way for the community, that we are open to ideas about how to do this better and more collaboratively.
And so, you talked a little bit about your crime strategies, and there's going to be more
Yes, ma'am.
To come. But how does accountability and transparency play into all of this?
Well, accountability is one of those words we need to all kind of It's one of those words we have not settled on a definition of. So I'll tell you how I look at accountability. Accountability is not discipline, right? Accountability can come in the form of discipline, but accountability, when it's done right, it prevents discipline. Accountability is setting a standard and holding each other to it. Whether that means you fell below it or you're going to push people to the next level. It's how you show people you care about them. And so if you're not giving me feedback, it tells me a couple of things. It tells me either you don't care about me because you'll let me keep making mistakes, or you won't let me live up to the best version of me possible, or it says that you don't think I'm capable of any more, right? That you have a low expectation of me. So if you're not giving me feedback, you're not holding me accountable, that tells me a lot about your opinions of me. And so I need to fix me if you're not willing to give me feedback. And so that needs to be part of it. And when it comes to transparency is the same thing, right? We have these different meanings of transparency, but really what transparency is, it's not data, right? I can give you all the data in the world about what the police department does. That doesn't tell you anything about why we do it. And so we want to get to the point where people know that whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to explain to them what we did and why we did it. And we're going to seek feedback, and we're going to be open to that feedback. And that's really what transparency is about, is people knowing what the police are doing and why we're doing it. I don't need you to agree with me. We're going to get things wrong sometimes. And I'm willing to get things wrong as long as we get it wrong in the right direction. But there are also going to be times this job is ugly. This job can be ugly, right? And so everything that we do is not going to be liked. But that doesn't mean that we need to shy away from talking about it. And so good, bad, ugly, indifferent, we're going to talk about what we do, and we're going to be accepting of feedback and have our ears open.
And with this entire plan, this strategy, how does the community fit in terms of their concerns, or if they have feedback that they want to give? How does that all fit?
Yeah, so the community is absolutely integral to this. And so I've already had several meetings with different individuals and different groups about how our crime strategies can work and how we can incorporate the community more. And I think what everybody has seen, at least I hope what everybody has seen, is that they've been much more willing to have meetings, to be visible, to talk about what we're doing, and to listen. And so creating those in a very formal way of saying these are opportunities to come to a meeting, a town hall, those types of things. But also, how do we make strategies so that officers can have meaningful interactions with community members? Because a lot of times our interactions with the community, unfortunately, are limited to, you've called 911 because you're having a bad day, right? And particularly with a manpower shortage, it is difficult for officers when they're going from run to run to run to take the time, to find the time to just have a conversation and do that community-oriented policing that people so want to see.
So you just mentioned shortage.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that look like?
Yes, ma'am. So we're depending on your estimates, we're probably between 250 and 300 officers short. I wouldn't mind having about 500 more officers. But what that means is that a lot of that time that we can spend taking care of the community, we got to spend going from problem to problem. And so we have to find different ways. That problem's not going to be solved overnight. I don't want anybody to think that, they're putting together a new recruitment strategy and next year they'll be up to speed and they'll have all the officers they need. It's not happening. All right. This is a problem that while it happened very quickly, it's not going to be solved very quickly. So it's a multi-year issue that we're going to be facing, even if we started getting all the numbers that we want right now. But what that means is that we have to be smarter about how we allocate resources. Where are we putting people? What are we asking them to do? And how do we supplement that with technology? And how do we supplement that with non-sworn personnel, with professional staff? And we've done a really good job over the years of, if it doesn't require a badge and a gun, then we've put professional staff in those positions. But that's something that we have to explore even more, is how can we be more efficient with the resources that we have, knowing that there might be some things that we have to drop off that we no longer do.
And so with that said, the whole mental health, I know that's a new initiative. Well, not so new, but it is a different way of looking at handling those types of situations. Do you mind to talk about that a little bit?
No, that's a very important issue for our community and for every community is, how do we handle our family members and our friends and our other community members that are in mental health crisis? And that takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of resources. And people in mental health crisis deserve that time and that effort and those resources. However, it's not always the best use of resources to have the police do those things. And so MetroSafe now runs our deflection program. So when somebody calls 911, they will get a triage worker that will work with that person to decide, does this need to be the police, or does this need to be a mental health worker that responds to this situation? And so if it's not a situation that presents either a criminal issue or a danger, the police department's not coming. And so they have the opportunity to be connected with a mental health crisis worker that can help take care of their problem in a better way than maybe is not our forte. And so that frees up us to do what we're really good at, which is police work. We do a good job of dealing with people in mental health crisis. I really do think we do. However, that is not our place of expertise. And I think this is a problem. This is a problem across the country, and it is not a state, it is not a local level problem. This is a federal level problem, and we need the federal government to step up on their end and deal with this problem on the scale that it actually is.
So you mentioned community policing. What is that? Tell me what that definition is. What is that?
Well, can I turn that back on you? Because this is, again, we've already talked about two other terms that people don't have a defined understanding of. So what do you think community policing means?
Well, I think maybe it's the police that's in that particular district integrated into the community.
Yeah,
and they know, who lives in the particular community. They have a relationship with the school principals and that kind of stuff.
And that's exactly what that is, right? And so we have to be intentional about that. It's very easy for those interactions to get lost. And so how are we directing our officers to make those contacts, to build those relationships? And so that's very important. I can tell you what it's not, and it's not having an officer walking your neighborhood. I think everybody talks about this this Andy Griffith Day back when you used to have an officer walking the beat, and I don't know anybody who's old enough to actually remember that, because when the 911 system came in place and we got behind the wheel of a police car, you get one or the other. Either you get the ability to call 911 and have an officer show up, or you get an officer walking your beat. And so, but that doesn't mean that officers should be inaccessible. Officers should be accessible to you as a community member. And so we have to be intentional about giving officers direction about how we want that done, but why. Because if an officer doesn't understand the importance of building those relationships and how it actually affects crime in their areas that they're responsible for, then they're less likely to do it, and they're less likely to invest that time in it. When they can see the real-time results of writing a ticket or locking someone up, but those relationships are those things that are built over time and have a cumulative effect that you might not see right now, but they're very, very important.
Yeah, building relationships.
That's number one.
That is number one. That is number one. And how does technology weave its way into the work that you guys do?
Well, technology is the way that everything's gone. We have so much of our so many of our investigations and so much of our budget is really tied in with technology. Whether you're just talking about the ability to fill out a report in your car, or access to vehicle information from our flock camera systems. So when we have a problem with stolen cars. We have a problem with stolen cars being used in violent crimes. So something like our flock camera system, which reads license plates at intersections, and then it can send that right to that officer's computer in their car right away with a picture of that car that says, this car just went through this intersection. And you think about something like that, and it's not only good for investigations and things like that, but think about it in the context of a vehicle pursuit. If there's a violent crime suspect and they take off from us. Having that technology makes it much safer because it reduces the need for us to chase somebody,
Yeah.
right? And so if we can get the helicopter up or we can track them via cameras, that is much safer for everyone, including the community. If we can make use of technology instead of having to participate in some of those dangerous activities that sometimes we have to do. But if we can mitigate that through technology, we do. And when you think about something like a cell phone shows up at every crime scene. There is a digital footprint that occurs at every single crime scene. And the amount of resources that goes into understanding how to use that as evidence is immense, and it's going to keep growing. It's not cheap, and it's not going to get cheaper. But just like DNA technology, the digital footprint is something that is the way the world's going, and we have to be ahead of the curve on that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes all the sense.
I mean, if 100 years ago it was who can track fingerprints, who can pull fingerprints, who has a database of fingerprints. Then it became DNA, and DNA is an important thing. So when you leave behind your genetic footprint at a crime scene and our ability to recover that and identify you, and now it's cell phone data. It's cell phone data and how we can track that. And that is 100% the way the world is going. We see everything that we do in our normal everyday lives, how it's integrated with technology. Well, policing's the same way. And so this is the next iteration of policing, is how we deal with the digital footprint of crime.
Let's take a brief moment and take a break.
What do I think about hope?
Hope. Let's see.
Hope to me means the light at the end of the tunnel.
You can't get by without hope. Hope means nothing without a plan.
I'm a coach. I'm also a father. I'm a husband. When I take off this uniform, I'm the same person behind the badge. The badge doesn't make me, I make the badge.
Our town is full of people who just want to do good, who want to make a difference.
Louisville is home, very much so. It is my home.
I just hope that we grow into being a very trusting, loving community.
Not just that, people from here are more open-minded. I don't know, me, myself, I feel very happy here.
We are Louisville.
We're Louisville.
We're a big city, but we're really a small town.
People feel safe, people feel comfortable. That's my favorite version of Louisville.
We are Louisville.
We are Louisville. We form together as one, and there are things that bind us together here.
I wish that we could pull together and be the change and be able to love each and every part of our community and lift the people up that need lifted.
I want to be an answered prayer, and that's what we have the opportunity as a police officer.
We are one metro. We have one mission, building a safer, stronger Louisville for everyone.
Welcome back. Today, my guest is Chief Paul Humphrey with LMPD, and we are having an amazing conversation about his vision and goals for LMPD. So you've talked about, your vision, the goals, and strategies. So talk a little bit about partnerships and collaborations that you either have or that you would like to form.
Partnerships are extremely important, and so I've been extremely busy in these first couple months of trying to the amount of people who have reached out, not just to say congratulations, but to say how can we help. It's been overwhelming, and that is a good sign, because what that means is it means that the community is just as invested in public and community safety as we are. And so making sure that we build those relationships, not only in the business world, not only with the clergy, but with those individuals, is very important. So if you really look at those three main groups of businesses, have been absolutely amazing. One of the things that we want to expand is, you talked about technology earlier, and we have a system called Fusus where we can plug business cameras into our system.
Okay.
So that way, when there is a crime that occurs or there's an issue, we can log into their cameras and retrieve that footage, as opposed to having to have an investigator come out and pull the footage and all of that type of stuff. So really, it's a force multiplier. It makes the businesses safer, and it gives us more investigative tools. So building those types of relationships have been very important, and we'd like to grow that. So that's something that I'd like to bring awareness to. And then clergy is always important, and how you build relationships with groups that, look, clergy going to tell you the truth, right? And so they're going to tell you when you got it wrong, and they're going to tell you what you need to do differently. And so that's very important. And then you have neighborhood, either individuals or other community groups that are extremely important. And here's the thing about it is that when you're talking about the drivers of violence and the drivers of crime, we don't have the resources to address those things, right? So our tool as the police department is to lock people up. But there's a lot of people that don't need to be locked up, or after they have been arrested and have gotten out, need access to resources so that they can change their lifestyle. Because our goal is to never have to lock anybody up again if we don't have to. And so we end up acting as the liaison between the community member and the resource that they need access to. Because they might not understand, how do I help my mom get her lights cut back on? How do I get job training or GED training? Well, we don't do that. The police doesn't do that. But how can we be that liaison? Because we're often the first point of contact between the community member and the system. And so if we can build those layered relationships between businesses, nonprofits, and clergy, and obviously the individual relationships, the one-on-ones that we have to have, those are very important. And so I've been pleasantly overwhelmed with outreach for people who want to see this community grow and thrive and become better.
And so it just goes back to what we talked about earlier, building relationships. When we were talking about community policing, is building those relationships is what is so important.
That's exactly what it's about. It's about how can we change lives for the better. We know that there are certain people that we just have to remove from the streets. They're dangerous to others. They can't play by the rules. I have no problem with doing that. But if there are people that we can get to change their lifestyle, or there are people that we can get out of bad situations, that's obviously preferable. So anytime we can build those relationships in order to affect people's lives for the better, that's what we want to do.
One thing I want to revisit before the end of the show is I want to talk about your recruitment for new officers, because if you're down 220 officers now, what is the plan for recruitment and how does that work?
Well, fortunately, one of the things that's happened recently is we've gotten a new contract. So officers are making a highly competitive wage. And so after around 2 years, you'll be making over $70,000. And overtime opportunities, being short, are there. And the other thing about this profession is there are a million ways to serve, right? I believe a life of service is how you should live. And there are a million different ways to serve. You can't do what we do in any other job, right? And that's very important. And this job is fun, plain and simple. Like, we get to play adult hide and seek, right? Miss Althea, one day you played your last game of hide and seek and you didn't even know it was your last game. I get to play all the time, right? So this job is fun. And so we're trying to look at different ways to approach recruitment and appeal to different people who might not have realized they'd be really good at this job. A lot of us are in positions, I spent 10 years on the SWAT team. I never would have tried out for the SWAT team if it hadn't been for somebody else saying, hey, I think you'd be good at this, right? And so sometimes that's just what we need, is somebody to identify us as being someone who might be good at something. And so LMPDjobs.com is our website. You can go there and you can see all of our sworn as well as civilian side jobs where you can contribute to bettering your community and get involved in this profession. That is very gratifying, and it's not like anything else.
So for you as a longtime officer, what would your advice be to a rookie?
Well, we just started a new recruit class, and I give the new recruit classes the same advice all the time. One is this job's about decision making. You might not always arrest somebody, you might not always take a report, but you're going to make a decision on everything that you do. So learn how to make good decisions. Number two is work ethic. Nothing can replace your work ethic. So when there's an opportunity, whether you feel like you belong or not, always say yes, and then be willing to work your butt off to fill that spot the best that you can. Right? And then accountability. And we've already talked about accountability, but accountability is holding yourself and everybody around you to a high standard. And so if you can manage those three things, accountability, work ethic, and decision making, you're going to have an outstanding career, and that's not just in policing. Anywhere you go, if you can manage those three things, you're going to be okay.
That's good. That's a good word. So before we let go, on a personal level, talk about some of your hobbies, or do you get to have hobbies now?
Well, yeah.
How do you spend your time when you're not at work?
The 16-hour work days are kind of part of my hobby, but no, I mean I like to stay in shape. So I go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning usually, and try to take care of that, because if I'm not feeling healthy, then I'm going to have a bad day. But I think you know from personal experience, because we have season tickets at the PNC Broadway shows right next to each other. So you can find me at a Broadway musical, which I think people might find a little out of character, they might think, but I can go from a Broadway musical to I went to the U of L football game. So and I'm going to be watching my Dodgers win the World Series tonight. So love baseball, love sports, and spend my free time trying to decompress and take care of family.
That's right. Well, thank you for coming on to the show. I know you're very busy, but I do appreciate you spending some of your time just giving us some insight into your vision and goals for LMPD.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching Metro Matters on Metro TV.